Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Literacy View. Well, here's a guest where I've been wanting to speak with her for a while, and it just didn't seem to work out before. But finally, we have her here. We have Ann Kay here, and she is a music teacher, and she integrates literacy and music. We're going to talk about an article today called The Relationship Between Musical Training and Early Reading Skills. But before we do, let me tell you a little bit about Ann. She is a co-founder of the Rock and Read Project, a Minnesota nonprofit dedicated to using singing to unlock children's potential for reading. And she makes presentations and teaches courses for preschool and elementary classroom teachers, and recently wrote A Song a Day, Brain Prep for Pre-Readers, 50 sequence lessons that use singing and music making to enable children's auditory processing critical for proficient reading. So her book came out recently. It's published by Ventress Learning. And Robert Meyer, the publisher, is a friend of mine. So I'm delighted that he has another great program to put out there. That's the publisher of UFLI as well. So all good stuff. And we're going to get started talking about rhythm. So Judy and I were at the World Literacy Summit, and there was a presentation that we both attended, and it talked about the importance of rhythm. And there was a lot of research about children being able to mimic a rhythm. So a rhythm is put out there, and children are supposed to reproduce the rhythm. And if they have trouble with it, it could be a sign of different areas that could be problems in reading. Anne, could you tell us what you know about the research on rhythm and early reading instruction?
It's a great place to start. There are many studies. I have 11 pages of different studies now, and many of them are documenting that children who cannot pat a steady beat are likely to struggle with reading. Children who have dyslexia often have a difference of processing sound, and so for them, often patting a steady beat is difficult, but this can be trained. So I always say, if the brain can't tick, reading's not going to stick, So, and it's such something like, what? And then clapping the rhythm of the words as they come out of your mouth, that would be rhythm patterns that you're talking about. So we start, helping parents keep the steady beat, have their child keep a steady beat. It starts with rocking baby, right? And bouncing baby, and nursery rhymes that are rhythmic and rhyming, and the baby feels the beat. But baby heard and felt the beat in the womb. It starts at 5 months when the fetus develops hearing in the womb. So we're really focused on prenatal through 5 now. Before they get to school, it's brain development. And yes, this is auditory processing, auditory memory, and beat synchronization. That's that one, which is part of auditory processing, but lots of different parts of the brain. We're talking about a neural network throughout the brain, but natural singing precedes talking. So that is, babies sing way before, and we call it singing, but it's rhythm and pitch and and we call that singing, but it's just stringing words together with rhythm and pitch.
So this is interesting because we're at a time where there are a lot of cuts to education. And as you know, the art, music, was always thought of as something that could be cut quickly. So, Judy Boxner, my co host, she and I are both really passionate about early childhood, preschool. I had written a book about this also. Um, and I feel that this is something that isn't talked about a lot. Judy, what are some of your thoughts as you listen to Anne and from what we learned at the World Literacy Summit about rhythm? Any thoughts you have?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, Anne, thank you for having being with us today. I'm so excited, and Faith is so excited. We've been waiting for a long time to talk to you. And it's interesting. Faith mentions the conference that we attended in Oxford, the World Literacy Summit. And as many of our listeners know, I just attended the Big Sky Summit in Montana, and it really hit home how language is everything. And this is part of language, hearing sounds. What do babies do when they just come out? It's all about language, sounds, talking. And it's a part of the reading rope that I think has been forgotten. And like my friend now, Doug Peterson, has said, if somebody's selling you one piece of the rope, they're really missing what literacy is all about. And I think that it's so important that we speak about language and music because I truly see now, after reading the research, it confirms my beliefs that this is going to help with phrasing and fluency. This is going to help kids with phonemic awareness. This is also, as you just mentioned, interestingly enough, going to help us see kids who may be at risk, maybe for dyslexia or other issues. I'm wondering, though, could it also help with showing us if a kid is struggling with DLD, which is something that was also spoken about at the conference, developmental language disorder. But all of these pieces are a critical piece of our literacy block, which could help with reading instruction. So can you tell me a little bit more about all of that?
Sure. And just to say, I should have said at the beginning, I'm so excited to be here. I just admire your work so much. And I know it's a stretch to think music is related to, or singing is related to reading. But when you think about it, I always say songs are stories with pitch and rhythm. And so the latest, greatest neuroscience, some comes out of Dr. Nina Kraus out of the Auditory Neuroscience Lab at Northwestern University. She studied how the brain processes sound for over 30 years, 35, 40 years. And she published a book of Sound Mind. And so she's my go-to because she has done many experiments with neural nets on children's brains. And the way they process sound, she can predict a 3-year-old is going to struggle with reading by the way they process sound before they ever get taught anything about reading, or any letters or whatever. And so to me, we have just what Faith said, we've been missing a big link. And so I always say, it's all about the brain, no trouble. It's so I don't know if you don't know that song, It's All About the Bass, but I change it to It's All About the Brain because you can't see it in here. But what Dr. Nina Kraus does is she analyzes frequency following response and how brains hear in noisy environments, how brains process and remember sound. And it's highly correlated with reading achievement. So it's something we're not talking about, probably because as elementary teachers or beyond, we're getting an old brain at 5 years old, starting kindergarten, 5 or 6 years old. That's already kind of an old brain. Not that we don't have plasticity of the brain, it always is learning. But at that point, the kindergarten teacher says, oh, I can tell within a couple of weeks which kids are going to struggle with reading. Really? And we haven't even started teaching reading. Okay. So it's language development, and it's and vocabulary and remembering, it's auditory memory. On the other end of the spectrum with old people, if we are losing our hearing, it's highly correlated with dementia. And I think, oh, we're losing access to our auditory memory. So on the other end of life, so now we're really focused on the very beginnings of life and how to set those little brains up for success in reading, pre-reading.
So, Anne, you mentioned something before about nursery rhymes. I have to tell you, I'm shocked by how many children do not know nursery rhymes. Like, I will say something and they'll look at me like they've never heard it before.
Faith, I have to say something. I know a lot of our viewers are listening, and it says nursery rhymes gone on my little post.
Oh my goodness. So we were thinking of the same thing. Wow, we're on the same path. So yeah, I mean, Judy and I are in the field, and I also worked with a universal pre-K for a few years, bringing in different strategies and a program and so forth. But one of the things I talked about were nursery rhymes, and the young teachers themselves did not know nursery rhymes. So obviously this has been going on for a while, where nursery rhymes have gone out the window. I don't know if you have an answer, but why did that happen? To me, that was a fun way to play with language that engages kids from the start. I don't get it. Do you have any answers about that?
So I used to teach music teachers, and I'm a specialist in folk song, and folk songs are old, as are nursery rhymes. They're old and old language. So when I was teaching a course for Minneapolis Public Schools for many years, it was called Want to Teach Reading and Math? Try Singing. And pre-K all the way up through 6th grade, teachers would take the course. And these young teachers, they say, I don't know any of these folk songs that have been around for sometimes like Twinkle Twinkle, 300 years, documented 300 years. I don't know any of these rhymes. I don't know any of these games. And I don't think they're going to work with my kids. That's what the young teachers would say. And I'd say, well, you go try them, come back. Oh my gosh. So every time we'd start the course, the class, and it was 24 hours over, a number of months, I'd say, what's working and what's not? Because I want to find out, how kids really learn, how teachers really teach. And so this teacher came in and she goes, I'm going to tell you with my kindergartners, I'm using these songs and games. They beg to do them. Singing games. They beg to play this. She said, I was shocked. I had no idea. I thought, why would they want to do this? And I thought, oh my gosh, teachers, I don't blame teachers, but they're being told things from a logical point of view, I think, and not from a child-centered developmental point of view. So she came back and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And then she had the 6th graders coming in with illustrated songbooks and reading to the kindergartners, reading to them the song. They had to sing the song. She said they just beg for it. They adore it. So for me, the inquiry is always like, I would like humans to do a certain thing, but they don't. So how can we help them do what is natural? Singing and basic music skills are really natural, but we have forgotten that they're important. So I call them the missing link. It's the missing link, and it's decades. In fact, decades we've documented, right, on the NAEP, National Assessment of Educational Progress. In 2024, almost 40%, like way over 1/3 of our 4th and 8th graders in this country cannot read at a basic level. So everybody's talking about proficiency. No, I'm looking at those way over 1/3 students who are not reading at a basic level. Wow, what's going on in those brains? It's the brain. And I don't blame teachers. The teachers are teaching in all sorts of ways, but those kids are in the classes. So some kids go, whoop, I learned to read, sometimes no matter how they're taught, and other kids, more than 1/3 of them, do not. So it's their brains. So how do we get at that, and how do we change people's practice? I don't know. We did come up with an experiment. I got a grant, and we created, these are not on the market or anything, music kits for families with this information in them in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Somali, and with little instruments and a calendar, mark off on your fridge when you sing with your kids. So we're in the business of how do you change people's behavior? And I think you give them the parent the information. If your child can't pad a steady beat, it's really easy to develop, but they got to do it. They are possibly going to struggle with reading. And they're like, what? If you give them that information, give them the power to change what they do with their kids. And it's not hard, but they need to know the research.
So before I turn it over to Judy, that little kit that you showed, I would love one for my grandson. So is this through a nonprofit, or like, how do people get access to the kit?
Yeah, so we got a grant from a neighboring town, and we're working with 2 other organizations. One is Way to Grow. They're home educators. They go to the homes. So they said, we're willing to do an experiment with you. So that's what we're doing. It's in the pilot phase, and some of it needs to be changed. But I think eventually, I thought if I could make a cheap kit, like I made it for under $15. In other words, and there's some fun instruments in here, little instruments, rhythm sticks, and a little microphone. Will parents use it? So we've got a survey out there now, because we gave out 50 are going to homes, 50 are at the bilingual story hour at the library, and 150 we passed out to families at a big event that we had, music makers, music groups, one Somali, one Spanish, and one English and Swedish. And then, so we're surveying the parents. Are you using this? Can you help us improve it? So
Interesting.
yeah.
So Judy, I saw you looked excited, like you would also want to see something like this. I think you have universal pre-K in your building, right? So have you witnessed music being cut from their day, or is it still something that is integrated well into the day, since you're right in the building? I mean, do you know anything about the music, Judy, or that's not, part of your day?
I think just in general, in a lot of schools, when I was growing up in New York City public schools, music was a very big part of my life. I was in the chorus. I played my clarinet. I took it so seriously. And I am seeing different programs in schools, but not as much as I did when I was a kid. And I see that some schools will have like a music cluster, some schools don't. I don't think it's consistent around the board. And I think that there seems to be, like Faith mentioned before, when things get cut, for some reason, the arts are very often not prioritized. And we know that it helps kids. But what I think is interesting is that, it doesn't have to be a cluster. It could be right inside the classroom as well. And I think, just attending the Big Sky Literacy Summit was a reminder how important our 3Ks, our pre-K space, which Faith and I are so passionate about, and we also provide professional development to that age group and teachers as well in schools. It is so important to work on these things in those spaces and in older grades. I spoke with Ann Kaiser at the Big Sky Literacy Summit, who is a pre-K guru specialist. And she said, if by age 2, kids can't say 50 words, that's a red flag. So are we giving kids what they need? Are they singing songs? Are they dancing in those classrooms? Are they able to tap those beats? Because I think, we wait very often. Oh, that can wait. That could wait till kindergarten. And Faith and I feel really passionate about the pre-K space in terms of, sounds and letters. And some people might challenge us with that, but we feel strongly about that. A lot of time is being wasted. Why aren't we doing more of these things in our classroom? Why?
So my response is that, unfortunately, I came at this as a music teacher, excuse me. And what I think is that we have separated music from, it's like a special gift or talent. So when I grew up, if you ask people if exercise is good for your health and well-being, they'd go, well, maybe if you're an athlete. If you saw somebody running down the street, you might call the police thinking there was a problem. No one jogged. Now, I'm showing my age, but under John F. Kennedy, the nation, there was a council actually under Eisenhower on youth fitness. And under Kennedy, that council launched the US Physical Fitness Program. And it went to every school. And the idea was you're going to do exercises. Well, we play games. No, the idea was children need to be flexible and strong. And how do we do that? So I'm saying we need a US musical fitness program. And so I've developed a musical fitness assessment. It's free on the website to find out, is your kid musically fit as a parent by age 5? I'm saying that by age 5, they should be able to do all these things. In order to do all those things, you're singing with them, because singing is the fastest way to develop vocabulary in context. It's stories with pitch and rhythm, and they're attending to the pitch. And there's good studies on if a child can discriminate between different pitches, highs, lows, they're going to be better readers. If they use prosody in their voice, they're going to be better at fluency. There's so many studies. So to me, it's getting this, research facts don't really change behavior. What changes behavior in humans is it's fun. So yes, those are, I've been teaching courses for classroom teachers for a long, long time so that they will sing every day. And that's where this new curriculum, a song a day, brain prep for pre-readers comes in. It's 50 sequence lessons. It's like, I've lost his name, but the guy who wrote Just Tell Them. I read the book.
All right. And I'm
Zach
going to
Rochelle. Zach Rochelle.
Jack Rochelle.
I'm going to challenge you, Ann. I'm going
Yes.
to challenge you. I think Faith is ready to take action and do something from that book. So, Faith, are you guys ready? Show us something. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like?
Oh, okay. So,
Faith, are you in a singing mood? I love to put Faith on the spot on the air. It's my favorite thing.
The wolves will be howling.
Sure.
Oh my God, Faith, the last time we sang on the air was at the World Summit in Oxford. It actually correlates with this topic. We were on stage with MC Grammar and we were rapping. We were rapping literacy stuff. It was powerful.
So what? So the first lesson, like 1A, is that you download a free app on your phone, Metronome, tick. And I have a metronome here, but it's decided to go crazy, a real one. But tick, tick. Let's imagine I got it on my phone, and you say, "Can you match the beat?" And you're hearing tick, 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 and the child tries to match exactly.
Wait, I'm going to try it, Ann. Come on, Faith. Let's try it. Unmute that mic. Let's do it, Faith.
Tick.
Come on, Faith.
Tick, tick,
tick, tick.
Tick, and 2 hands patting on the lap. And guess what? There's research about it. This is the easiest for children. They can also pat their shoulders, 2 hands on the shoulders, but they're keeping the underlying heartbeat, the underlying pulse. And then the next easiest thing is every other hand. So beat, beat, beat. They've actually researched this at High Scope in Michigan. And then the next one was, the hardest thing is walking to the beat. So, step, step, step. So that's a later skill. It's just like, how do children develop? They crawl, then they walk, then they jump, then they hop. And there's an order of physical movement. So there's an order to developing basic music skills. And so that's what we're about, basic music skills. So the first one is called Magic Metronome. And you do some different things with the metronome. And then you do some nursery rhyme. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. So, lesson number 2 builds on lesson number 1. And they're about 15 minutes long. The problem we have is that, jeepers, children don't want to stop doing the activities. So the teacher goes, I got to go on. And I say, no, you don't. Just keep doing them and stretch the lesson out over another day or repeat the lesson. But 1A leads to actually the first level, there's 10 levels, and 1A leads to 1B. And so each level gets harder, and so when you're at level 10, then you can actually assess your children at the end, pre and post, with the musical fitness assessment. Did they improve their music skills? Well, it's a long leap to saying these music skills are going to see the impact. But we have a research we did in a school with first graders. We gave them the music assessment. They didn't have any of the lessons, but at the end of first grade, they took the Fast Bridge assessment, and every one of the 4 categories, as the music skills rose, got more, or better. It was correlated with the reading.
Okay, so wait. So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you there.
Sure.
So you're not sure, though, if that's a direct link. I mean, let's be fair here, because I'm open-minded, but couldn't they have improved because perhaps they were getting explicit phonics instruction along the way from the time they were assessed at the beginning to the end? I mean, maybe there was a correlation with doing some of this work, but we don't know for sure if doing this caused a leap. Do we? I mean,
no, we don't. Those children did not have this, but we did measure going through the curriculum, 50 lessons, pre and post, and there was a statistically significant improvement in pre-K, and I also had kindergarten teachers. So in those 2 groups, it was a greater improvement in the kindergarten group. And I'm kind of thinking, well, kindergarten teachers are used to teaching curricula, and they will follow more. Maybe pre-K is, we're more fluid. We're less direct instruction. I don't know why, but they were both statistically significant improvement after the 50 lessons. The 50 lessons take maybe 10 weeks to do, because you're doing them 5 days a week, probably.
So I have your paper in front of me, and it says here, the benefits are strongest when music activities are rhythmically based and integrated with explicit reading instruction. So the combination of doing this, right, with the reading instruction, effect size 0.44, they are also stronger in pre-kindergarten, an effect size of 0.62, than in later grades. So the earlier that this is done, there's a more significant benefit to this. So my question is there value in introducing rhythm work for 5th and 6th struggling readers? I mean, will it really give you the bang for the buck when they're older?
That's a really good question, and I don't really have an answer to that. I think music training, music instruction, and I'm not talking about music education, learning about music. I'm talking about skills, and that's where we differ here at Rock and Read Project. We are about skill development. And so I think no matter when, we have many, many stories, they're not research, but of children who were struggling readers, and then they started taking piano lessons, or they started using a software that we used to work with, and they all of a sudden could read. So I never, ever say give up. There are people struggling to find answers for their children who are not reading. So always rhythmic work, but also pitch work. There's less research about the pitch, but I just think people haven't researched it that much. And
can you explain a little bit about what that means? And can you explain for our listeners, when you say pitch, can you give a little bit more detail of what that means to our listeners?
Absolutely. So I'm saying the 4 basic skills are patting the beat, clapping the rhythm, hearing a pitch and matching it. Woo! The child goes, woo, 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 try to match it. And then another pitch, woo, 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 woo. Yeah. Well, where is that in, I can't find that with my ear vibrates and the brain processes. And then I have to vibrate my vocal folds at the same exact frequency. Wow. And then singing in tune. So there's a lot less information about, people have not researched pitch and, hearing pitch as much, but there is some good research about pitch discriminations or pitch differentiation. So you hear different pitches and you can tell they're higher or lower. I think we should research it more. Those are our four basic.
You know what? Listening to that, and I'm just thinking of talking to my grandson. He's 13 months old. I naturally will raise my voice when I speak to him. I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I start going into that higher pitch. And
all right, Faith, I want a better model. Make believe I'm your grandson. And I want to hear what that higher pitch sounds like. Come on, do it, Faith.
I will start talking to him saying, Tyler, would you like something to eat now?
It actually has a name, Motherese. Somebody coined Motherese, and there's research about it. It's very helpful. But the most helpful thing is a later study now that has said that babies pay more attention to their mothers when they sing to them than when they speak to them. So I was diapering my granddaughter one day, and she hated to be diapered. And she was wiggling all over the place.
Tyler, too. He rolls away. He starts crying. He hates diapering. Yes.
So I said, diaper, diaper, don't you cry. Diaper, diaper, now you're nice and dry. And she was like transfixed. So I help people, infant carers, just make it up, but make sure it has rhythm and rhyme.
I'm going to try that. Wait, let me do it. Diaper, diaper.
Don't you cry.
Don't you cry.
Diaper, diaper, now you're nice and dry.
Diaper, diaper, now you're nice and dry. Okay.
And you can
have to share that.
You know what's funny? So when I was in the classroom for many, many years, I would always make up songs for math. I made rap songs for teaching how to tell time. I'm not going to sing it on the air. If you want to hear me rap,
come on, Judy. You wanted
tick tock, you don't stop. Tick tick tock, you don't stop. Tick tick tock, you don't stop. The clock counts by fives. The clock counts by five. There's better ones that I have, but I felt, but I didn't know the research that it was helping my students. And because I made many different raps to teach sometimes very difficult concepts, I think it helped with the retrieval and that it helped student outcomes. But I didn't have the research at that time to support that. It's just, I saw the outcomes in the classroom. So maybe I was onto something in the classroom.
And
what do you think?
The thing is, when we make music, the motivation part kicks in. And the physical part. We're the only primate that when you hear music, like dun, 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 whatever the music is, tick, tick, our brain, the physical part, why we want to tap our foot, primates like chimpanzees and gorillas or whatever, they don't, that doesn't happen.
And I think it also helped with like memory. And the reason that I did these things is because when I first started teaching, there were the people that had a lot of explicit instruction going on before my balanced literacy days. And they made raps and maybe not raps. I shouldn't exaggerate. They weren't making raps, but they had songs about how to memorize the multiplication tables, and kids would be singing it in my school building. And it really helped. And then my own kids remember the multiplication facts with songs and stuff. So I definitely think that this could help all age brackets, but I don't see a lot of it happening in our classrooms right now, especially because we're being told exactly, we're being given programs, and I don't know if, music has been thought about or nursery rhymes. And I wonder, Faith, you said nursery rhymes were written a long time ago. Is there anybody on the market that's writing some really good modern day nursery rhymes? Maybe it's time for an update.
It's time. Yeah, I don't have, there's lots of poetry though. Short poetry, there's a lot you could use. And we don't necessarily advocate like with older kids. I love that. I love what you did. I love it, Judy. Like I used to say, you could do, we will rock you. And you put anything you want with that. you tweak the natural thing that kids want to do, and you
I got to interrupt again. I'm getting excited. This is a topic I'm passionate about. I think that Faith, and I want to ask you your opinion. I think some nursery rhymes disappeared because some people, like fairy tales, thought they were a little dark, like Hickory Dickory Dock. He fell, Humpty Dumpty. He fell. He cracked his head. Maybe people got uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, because I don't feel uncomfortable. But maybe could that be it?
You know what? I remember wanting to bring nursery rhymes into the Early Reading First grant. So I was the project manager for Early Reading First after I was the coach for a regional coach for Reading First. And I was really stressing the nursery rhymes. And then somebody said to me that they were culturally biased. Again, I looked at it as just language and rhyme, and people were reading into something that was deeper. I never really understood that. It didn't make sense to me. Again, the grant was designed to help people, from diverse backgrounds, and trying to give them a head start in life. So it really didn't make much sense to me. So I don't know. I don't know if you've heard, Anne, about any of those types of things.
Sure, there are folk songs that I don't teach anymore because the language or the verses were offensive. It's language with pitch and rhythm. And if the language is offensive, we can't be teaching those. I mean, what were we doing?
Like which one? Give me an example. Like what was offensive? Because
well, they might talk about a certain ethnic group in derogatory terms, or they might talk about, or I'll use one that was a gender one. Grandma Grunt said a curious thing. Boys can whistle, but girls must sing. I'm like, what?
So I never heard that one.
Old folk songs. So what I used to tell people who took our course, want to teach reading and math, try singing. These are patterns of sound that have been around not only for decades, but sometimes for hundreds of years. Why? Because the brain loves that pattern. Let's use one that's been documented 300 years. It goes do 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 with 10 zillion words. Twinkle twinkle, Baba Black Sheep, ABC song. Why does the brain love that? Says what is all about the brain? Because it's about the forms of feeling. So let's think about that first phrase. Bum 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 bum. Oh, nice and pleasant. But then second phrase. Bum 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 ba yum dum 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 da. End of song? No. You gotta resolve that, right? Dum 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 dum. Oh, phew. Humans love that.
All right, so I see your point. I see your point. And I do see how maybe we do have to be mindful that, some things from the past, things have changed, but there were so many things that were good. And then we can't just give up and say, okay, everything was bad and not create something now. So we have an obligation to create something that maybe is more appropriate for today.
So one thing that I stopped, because it made me think about one. So I remember my mother used to do this one with me. Clap hands till daddy comes home. Daddy has money and mommy has none. You never heard that one? And so then I realized, hey, what kind of song is that? So that one is not in the repertoire anymore. But okay, so you get rid of. But like Judy said, you don't just stop nursery rhymes. I mean, that to me is just taking it to
I think it's taking it the easy way out, because people don't want to produce new things. Like even, I'm not going to name the program or the curriculum, but there's a program out there that is shown to have a lot more evidence than others, but people felt it wasn't culturally responsive enough. So instead of like saying, okay, let's modify it, let's make it better, let's make it more culturally responsive, people went with other things. So I think that we have an obligation, if we are uncomfortable with something, let's think about why are we uncomfortable, and let's think about, okay, how could we take the pedagogy that's involved and make it better, but still align to the research. I think that very often we're too comfortable, afraid to change things, afraid to put in more effort. And that's not, new doesn't always mean better. The things that we did in the past may have had a lot of evidence behind them. And I have an interesting question for you. I've heard a lot, and Faith is probably better at pointing out the research. When we lose our memory, very often music is the last thing to go. People will very often remember songs. Even my grandfather, may he rest in peace, right when he was dying on his deathbed, he was happy as could be. He was singing songs, and we were singing, and it was like a celebration of life. And he still remembered songs. So and even I still remember songs of when I was dating somebody or when I broke up with somebody. So music does have such an important part of our life. And because of my sons, I now have Spotify, because music is a big part of our life. Can you tell me a little bit about songs, memory, and the relation, and why it's the last very often to go?
Oh, I was on. One of the, so deepest part of the brain. And it's not just one part of the brain. It's it lights up like fireworks when actually I've heard from this phrase that singing, music making lights up more areas of the brain than any singular activity. So if that's so, then we would have access to that our full life. What I love is a piece of research from Dr. Nina Krause's lab, where they found with old people who had taken music instruments when they were kids, taken lessons like you did, Judy, and then they didn't play for 40 years. They had better hearing, better auditory memory than others who never played an instrument. Wow, 40 years later. And they're not actively playing their instrument. So it all points back to, what do you do in early childhood to develop that brain? Not that we can't keep developing it, but really the focus, nationally, we've woken up a lot of people prenatal through 3. There's an organization, PN through 3. There are people back to writing things, Judy. I love that. Eric Litwin, who wrote the first Pete the Cat books. I know Eric, and he wrote, new songs, and there's videos to go with them. My red shoes, my school shoes, and they're very catchy and fun. So there are people writing for kids, and I think, but I think what I think about often are, what are the main barriers? One main barrier is we have a whole generation of young teachers, not so young teachers, who are afraid to sing, especially afraid to sing in their classroom. So one of the things that when I was teaching the course for many, many years, want to teach reading and math, try singing, we have a private coaching session with Anne. And they were like, oh my gosh. So I had a little xylophone, and I'd play a little pitch, boom. Let's see how low I can sing. Bah, da, 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 da. And I try to make light of it. And they were petrified. Many of them. They don't want to sing. Singing is so scary. I mean, we judge people. So I learned from the teachers themselves and these assessments, which I've done hundreds of them, people are afraid to sing. They're afraid to be judged. So we have to help them get over that. So I'd say, okay, let's sing Twinkle. And a kindergarten teacher would sing, Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And I'd say, oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, you sing perfectly well in tune. And they'd go, what? They don't know. I say, yes. And you have plenty of range for your kindergartners. You sing plenty low and high. And then I say one thing about their voice. I say, I have to be honest, though. I can't make it up. Oh, you have a beautiful voice. No. I'd say for that kindergarten teacher, oh, you teach kindergarten. You are a perfect focal model for kindergarten. Twinkle, you're definite. It's pure. It's light. They're going to curl up in your lap. They already love you, I'm sure, but they're going to love you even more when you start singing. They come back the next week's class. They've started singing with their kids, and they go, oh my gosh, they just love it. They cluster all around me. They want me to sing. I'm like, mm-hmm. But, and then other people come in, twinkle, twinkle, they've got a red wine voice or something, But I always talk about what you have in a way that hopefully will help them use it. So, yeah.
So here's my question. We talk about transfer a lot on this show, where something could be practiced, but it doesn't necessarily transfer to, comprehension, let's say, or to a different content area. So if you're doing something in one, you'd like to see transfer across the board. I'm wondering if people out there are thinking, well, they might get better at, let's say, replicating a beat, but does this transfer to their reading? And so I know there's research, but not everybody is looking at it. Could you talk about the transfer of doing something like what you were talking about, and that it's not just about them getting better at tapping the beat, but that there is transfer to other skills that are necessary?
Yeah, this is something that I'm really interested in, this word transfer. And I think it's been used for a couple decades about transferring things. Before we had the tools that we have now for looking at the brain and how it processes. And I think that word might even start going away, because I think it's a human way to try to describe how the brain is working. And for me, when we say transfer, and there are many studies, I agree with Faith, many studies talking about, well, does this transfer to this? Because that's a way humans can talk about it. But I don't see from what all the brain research I read, I don't see that term being used very much anymore, because this is this huge neural net. It's like, okay, Stanislas Dehaene, right? His research, he won the Brain Prize for showing how the eye neurons that recognize face, the neurons that recognize face recognition, have to, when you start to read, have to actually grow connections that aren't there in the brain to the sound area. And I'm like, well, what if the sound area isn't very well developed? Now I'm growing these connections, but you know what? The sound area is developed starting at 4 or 5 months as a fetus. It's got a big jump on growing those dendrites over to the sound processing. So I think in terms of neural networks. There was a wonderful book called In Search of Memory. It's by Eric Kandel. And he wrote that he was studying how memory would be formed. So I think we're talking about not transfer. We're talking about memory, neurons that actually can remember. B goes buh, I mean, come on, Jamal, the next day, what's this letter? It's a B. And how does it sound? I can't remember. We just did it yesterday. Well, that neural net, that neural connection is not there yet. It's not formed. So I think I'm not a scientist.
Well, maybe that just needs more repetition. And I don't mean to poke holes into what you're saying, but anybody in education is going to want to know, if they're investing the time, they are going to want to know this type of information.
We have
So
a bibliography of 11 pages free on our website on the research pages. There is and I did not write this white paper. The research guy over at Ventress Learning wrote it from what I had sent him. He got very excited about the meta study that was done quite a long time ago. He said, Anne, this research it's there. I said, I know. Why? So I heard that it takes 17 years for research to hit practice. If we were medical doctors and a new research study came out, we'd be all over it. So I don't know why, as teachers, we resist research, or we don't have time. We don't have time, right, to know about it, maybe. And that's where you guys come in so well, because you're always talking about the research. This is neuroscientific research that I'm really focused on in the last 10 years, how the brain processes sound, how it remembers sound, and the correlations with achievement. And not just achievement it's language, and there's math, and there's all sorts of things. So if I think about transferring, what is transferring?
Well, what about data? So maybe I'm not asking it the right way.
Okay, sure.
Is there clear data, school data, not in a lab, but school data where by doing certain activities or following a scope and sequence in this, where, that's the only thing, let's say, that changed, then, and, that's a biggie, that's could be an isolated type of change. That to me is very important because schools don't have unlimited money. These are tough times. We need to be able to, show that we're adding something in or changing something, but possibly pulling something out of the day to put something in the day. I think that piece is really important.
Well, we had a grant, $600,000 from the state legislature, and we bought a software. We don't own it, that we implemented. It was called, I'll say it, Tune Into Reading. And we had incredible data from 5 years. It was a state, we got the money from the legislature. It was a state pilot for 5 years. On average, it affirmed 4 or 5 controlled research studies that kids who sang with a karaoke style, these are 4th and 5th graders. We did it 2nd through 5th, but we analyzed the 4th and 5th graders who were struggling readers, by the way. Most of them does not meet the state reading standards. They sang with this software for 14 hours. And on average, they go up 1 year in reading achievement. And all the 5 in our study, the 500 kids at those same schools that didn't use the singing thing did not statistically improve in reading from 1 year to the next on the state test. Well, I said, my gosh, 14 hours. And so we showed the data to our 25 schools, 2,500 kids were on this over the 5 years. And pretty much we'd show them the data, spreadsheets. We hired a separate data analyst there. And already there are 4 or 5 controlled research studies about this software thing. They wouldn't continue. So I was like, oh my gosh, the state test is coming. Oh, we got to practice for. I said I would put more kids on this. Here's the data. So that's why I say humans don't do exactly what I think they should when they look at the data, right? And so they did not. And so you asked about studies, Faith. Like here's one from 2015. They claim they were the first randomized control.
So why did they even bother tracking? Why did they even bother tracking if they weren't going to do anything with the? Okay, so you tracked, and so
the data, and we sat down with the principal and the literacy person, and they were like, okay, yeah, every child was listed, child 1, student 1, student 2. And I was flabbergasted. But they said, well, we have to teach the curriculum, or we have to do this. We don't have time for this. So there were many reasons. We don't have the computer time, or we don't have we've got too much to teach. And I got that.
And that is true.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. Do you have any last questions, thoughts for Anne?
Anne, I just what is your big thing that you want people walking away? What's the big thought of the day? And what's one practical move that a teacher can do tomorrow to ensure that music is incorporated into their classrooms?
I love it, Judy. Sing and dance your day away. Your kids will be happier in the classroom. You'll be happier. Our teachers report, oh my gosh, I'm so much happier. Make up chants. Do whatever it is you want to do, but get them moving, get them singing, have a greeting thing every day when they come in, have a goodbye song, in the transitions, make it up. I don't care. Play songs sing songs you want to sing songs your kids love. Just start singing.
Okay. So here's a thought that I have, and Judy will know just what I'm talking about. So, in foundations, and I never really like to bring up programs like this, but one of the things that kids do in this decoding program is they do this sound chant at the beginning, a sound drill, and they do a apple a, whatever is being pointed to, e ed e, o octopus ah, and so it becomes almost rhythmic, in the way that it's being recited. And then you would ask the kid, okay, tell me the sound while pointing to the letter. And they'll say a apple a, where they end
Not all the time, Faith. If you're a good pedagogue,
okay.
You're instruct.
Okay.
Wait,
Judy,
You're
I've
right.
seen it a million times.
I have too, and that's why we differentiate.
But a million times where the kids did not separate the sound from just throwing.
And that's why we go in and say, what was the letter? What was the sound? And I've even heard that you could change the chant to have.
But that's not my question. The point is, it happens and it becomes cognitive overload, because instead of just associating the sound with the letter, they have to do the name, the name of the letter, the name of the picture, and the sound. And it's a lot instead of just, here's the sound. My point is, though, some things can become chanting, and they could chant it, but then they don't pull out the practical piece that you want. It almost takes their attention away sometimes from what the goal of what you want is. So I don't know if you've seen that, Anne, what I'm talking about, but there are sometimes where they're very good at like spitting back to you something to help remember, but they're not separating out the important information from that.
I don't know if that's research, but my feeling about it is that we used to have people come and say, I want songs to teach things. I say, well, whereabouts songs and movement to enable the brain? And they're like, what? So I said, let's just look at it this way. My only analogy with what you're saying is, how many days are in June? Wait, just a minute. 30 days has September, April, June. Oh, there's 30 days in June. That is not automaticity. So we're teaching for automaticity. We're teaching for brains to remember, boom. And so there's many ways of going about it, like you say, but you're hooking things together. And we would teach folk song games. So if you're doing oboe, shin-nut and tut, and you're passing around a beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, then we would modify it to the spelling words. MISSISSIPPI. We would change, we'd take regular folk singing games that are playground games, hand clapping games that have the underlying beat. And then we could practice things that need to be automatic that way. I'm not sure. So or 50 nifty United States. Do I have to go through all the states to remember which state? It's a crutch. It's a crutch.
Right. So I think, I guess what I want is for people to understand the value of what you're talking about. But sometimes we have to also be cognizant of the fact that just because kids can chant something doesn't mean they're learning it. I think that is the bottom line. I did learn how to spell Mississippi by singing it. Do you want to hear it?
Here she goes.
You want me to sing MISSISSIPPI. It used to be so hard to spell, but now it's pumpkin pie. My grandmother taught me that. That's from years and years ago. And we would sing that together. And that's how I know how to spell Mississippi.
And you have a ton of vocabulary in your brain from your grandma singing songs.
Correct.
So how the fastest way to develop vocabulary, and you sing a song over and over, So you're building those neural memory. It's like, I just think, again, we're trying to talk about brain development, but because you're practitioners, you want to hook it to teaching reading. And I'm saying just by developing the brain, we are going to be better
There's
readers.
an effect.
There's a
There's an
ton
effect.
of research about it. And you asked, I wanted to go round back. In our bibliography are tons of research studies about phonological awareness, about looking at intervention with music instruction and its effect on specific areas, on fluency, on phonological awareness, on all sorts of things. And there are many
what's
studies.
BS out there, Anne? We're going to wrap up. So give us 3 things that you would call BS on. You can do it, and then 3 things that you want to cheer about, and then we'll wrap up.
Oh, BS is people aren't musical. All people are musical. All people have a voice and sing. Almost all people have a voice and can sing, make music. It is not a special gift or talent. It's like learning to ride a bike. You got everything you need, but you got to get on the darn bike. So, I don't even know what I guess I come up with the BS are the barriers we put. There's no time. I don't have time, which is really true. I'm saying you cannot not have time. If over 1/3 of our students can't read at a basic level by the time they're in 4th and 8th grade, we have a long-standing crisis, and it's a brain development crisis. Not necessarily. I mean, yes, about
So
teaching.
what about Cheers? Tell me something that you want to share about.
Cheers. Oh my gosh. I want to just a shout out to our little nonprofit Rock and Read project. It's like the little engine that could. We keep working on how do children really learn? How do parents really learn? How to teach? How can we help people? And that's us. We're trying to help families and educators and organizations use singing and basic music skills to develop young brains for reading. So a big shout out to our piloters, pre-K and kindergarten teachers who took a flyer on this, and our curriculum, A Song a Day. Big shout out for you having somebody on that's not a reading teacher talking about brain development, and singing. Thank you.
And you know what? That's interesting that you said that, because at the conference that I just attended, we're seeing that more people need to be involved in the literacy landscape. We saw more SLPs, speech language practitioners. We saw more psychologists. We saw one pediatrician in the house that we hope we see more. And now we have somebody who's passionate about music in the house. I think that that's how we begin working less in our silos. So thank you, Anne.
Yes, and it is important when we can to integrate. And what you're saying is the best time to do this is in those early years. So we thank you so much for coming on with us. It was great. And for our listeners out there, if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy the Literacy View, don't forget to give us a 5-star
review. And don't forget to find us.
5.
Oh, Faith is counting. Sorry. See, she's singing it. And in spite of her, she's gonna. No, you know what Faith's gonna do? She's gonna make a rap song asking for a 5-star review. And also, please visit our website www.theliteracyview.com for all our great resources, all our great services to start your school year, and all our episodes. It's one-stop shopping. We're changing lives one view at a time. Thank you, Anne.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.